On the 8th of April 2017, a post appeared on the blog sharing website Medium. Titled, "Don't Forget Your Base," the blog was created by a user called the Shadow Brokers. Written in broken English, the message was a mix of frustration and political grievances, addressed directly at Donald Trump, who was the President of the United States at the time. But the most interesting part came at the end, where the Shadow Brokers released a string of letters and numbers that would shake the world of cybersecurity. To explain the significance of the blog post, we have to go back 8 months, to the 13th of August 2016, when a Twitter account with the handle @ShadowBrokers appeared and posted a tweet claiming that they hacked the Equation Group and stole cyber weapons, one of which they're giving away to everyone for free, and said they were auctioning the rest off. The Equation Group is a very sophisticated hacker group that is all but confirmed to be the NSA. Specifically, the Tailored Access Operations Unit. TAO is the cyber warfare division of the NSA. It develops malware and exploits, discovers 0 days, and creates cool spy gadgets. Basically, all the stuff you see in movies, and more. This immediately cast doubt on the Shadow Brokers' claim, who could hack the NSA and extract their most guarded secrets and weapons. Well, the doubt did not last long when security analysts took a look at the free sample that was given out. Attached to the tweet was a link to a paste bin, which contained the usual broken English ramblings, a Bitcoin address for payments, along with instructions to participate in the auction, and links to download 2 encrypted and compressed files, Equation Group Free File and Equation Group Auction File. The password for the first file was provided, and inside that file was a never-before-seen exploit for Cisco and Fortinet firewalls, which allowed an attacker to send a payload to a fully patched and updated firewall and take it over. The Shadow Brokers weren't lying. By the first week of the auction, the Bitcoin address had only received around $2,000 worth of Bitcoin. Quite a disappointing result, considering the firewall vulnerability alone could be sold for a decent sum, let alone a whole suite of NSA tools. In January of 2017, the Shadow Brokers said they were going dark, since they hadn't gotten the amount of money they wanted. They released some more tools for free and disappeared, leaving behind the encrypted file mentioned earlier without a key. This, of course, caused a stir in the cybersecurity field, with security professionals scrambling to mitigate the effects and find out what capabilities the NSA had. However, this was not the last we heard of the Shadow Brokers. They resurfaced again in April 2017, when they published the blog post mentioned at the beginning of the video, and at the very end of the blog, they gave out the password of the Equation Group auction file, the file they tried to sell and then left behind when they disappeared earlier in the year. Inside was a slew of tools, remote code execution exploits, anti-forensic tools, command and control frameworks, privilege escalation tools, and much more. This again left the InfoSec community in shambles, but the Shadow Brokers weren't done handing out heart attacks just yet. Jake Williams, a hacker who wrote blog posts pointing out possible connections between the Shadow Brokers and the Russian state, was their next target.
And so I wake up, phone alarm goes off, whatever. Wake up and I check Twitter notifications, and like at the time I saw all my notifications going to the phone, what have you, and I just do like a little drag down. It's like 99 plus, right? 99 is where it stops counting, right? It's like 99 plus notifications, and I'm like, ugh. Either something really good has, like a blog post has gone viral, or something, I'm like, my first thought is like, I tweeted something that really pissed a bunch of people off, and I've got some like whatever it is, the gang up kind of thing going, or dog piling or something, and then my blood ran cold when I saw what had actually happened.
Shadow Brokers, the secret hackers who had the attention of the entire InfoSec community and so many more people, had tweeted directly at Jake. The tweet said, quote, "At Malware Jake, you having a big mouth for former Equation Group member. Shadow Brokers is not in habit of outing Equation Group members, but had make exception for Big Mouth. End quote.
Yeah, these guys aren't messing around. Jake's work at Tau was not public knowledge at the time, and very few people knew about it. Whoever these guys are, it's clear they have a lot of inside information about the NSA and the Tau unit, and it doesn't really seem like they were bluffing or making a guess.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, like, kind of overall message. Do you think they're guessing at who you were, or?
No, not a bit. I can say with confidence that with high confidence that they 100% were not guessing at who I was. I say that with high confidence. I can't get into the why, but I will say for sure they were not guessing at who I was. They had that dead to rights. They knew it wasn't a guess. And based on some other stuff that they've written, I'm fairly certain they had that. Yeah.
So, the shadow brokers didn't just have some leaked tools, they had information about NSA employees, specifically Tau members, aka the Equation Group. They even went as far as corroborating their claims by mentioning cryptic operation names that Jake was supposedly involved in. Things that we can really only speculate about.
The Shadow Brokers tweets started, or their messages were saying things like connecting you to things like Odd Job, CCI, Windows Bits Persistence, and the Q Group.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any comment about that?
There's no safe comment that I can make on any of that.
Well, if you know, you know. The shadow brokers clearly had deep operational knowledge from inside the NSA, and a few days later, on April 14th, they would make their final big leak. This leak, however, was different. It would go on to cause around $14 billion in damages in just 2 months, and would start a chain reaction, propelling ransomware to the forefront of cybercrime. The dump contained many exploits and tools, but one stood out among the rest and was by far the most impactful. It was codenamed Eternal Blue. Eternal Blue was an exploit for a vulnerability in Microsoft's implementation of the SMB protocol, a protocol used for file sharing and directory browsing between workstations and installed by default on all Windows machines, since it's the basis of Microsoft's Active Directory system. The vulnerability tracked as CVE 2017-0144 was a bug in the SMBv1 implementation, where user input wasn't properly validated and allowed the possibility of remote code execution on the vulnerable machine. Eternal Blue was a fully written exploit. When a vulnerable machine was found, it would send a specially crafted message that allowed the attacker to infect and control it. Although the exploit was leaked in April of 2017, some interesting things happened before it went public. It seems like Microsoft had prior knowledge of its existence and had actually issued a patch to the vulnerability in March of the same year, 1 month before its release. Some say that the NSA warned Microsoft of the breach. Others speculate that the vulnerability itself may have been intentionally added by the NSA, with cooperation from Microsoft. No one can say for certain. Even more intriguing, the shadow brokers aren't the only ones that managed to steal NSA tools. A report by Symantec revealed that a Chinese threat actor, codenamed Buckeye, was discovered to be using Equation Group exploits as far back as March 2016. Exploits which later appeared in the 2017 leaks, 5 months before the shadow brokers even appeared. Buckeye was suspected to be a contractor for the Chinese Ministry of Security Services, who conducted cyber attacks on Hong Kong, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Philippines, and Vietnam, which would line up with areas of interest for Chinese state hackers. We'll never know for sure, since Buckeye disappeared around mid-2017, but that's a story for another time. The important thing now is we have an exploit, written by one of the most sophisticated hacker groups on the planet, in the hands of the public, that affects nearly every machine running Windows. A race has begun. Some people saw this as a disaster and scrambled to update and patch their systems. Others, however, saw this as their golden opportunity. Threat actors rushed to develop and adapt their malware to use eternal blue, since with every passing day there were less and less machines to infect. On the 12th of May, 2017, at 7:44 Coordinated Universal Time, a window began to appear on computer screens all across the globe. Your important files are encrypted. Many of your documents, photos, videos, databases, and other files are no longer accessible because they have been encrypted. Maybe you are looking for a way to decrypt your files, but do not waste your time. Nobody can recover your files without our decryption service. In a matter of hours, thousands of computers were infected, the petabytes of data stored on them completely inaccessible. WannaCry used a very simple concept. Rather than trying to painstakingly go through a network over months and find banking information or extract money some other clandestine way, they decided to make the victim pay them directly. When your machine was infected with WannaCry through the Eternal Blue exploit, it would generate a random string of data. Then, it would go on to encrypt all the files it could on your computer using that random data as a key. Next, it would encrypt the key itself using a hard-coded public key so no one can see it in transit, and send it over to their command and control server. The C2 server had the corresponding private key and would decrypt the key that was used to encrypt your computer and wait for payment. If you paid the Bitcoin, the key was sent back to your computer and your files were decrypted. If not, well, in 7 days, they would delete the key from their database and your files would be gone forever. It was quite an ingenious scheme, and with the help of Eternal Blue, it ravaged through networks, spreading itself and encrypting files. The ransomware had infected 300,000 computers across 150 countries in 7 hours and 19 minutes. Later that afternoon, a researcher named Marcus Hutchins became aware of the attack and decided to take a look at WannaCry. In his bedroom, he began to reverse engineer the malware when he found something strange. Before starting to encrypt files, WannaCry would check if this domain name existed. If it was registered, it would simply exit without doing anything. At 3:44 p.m., Marcus registered the domain name, hoping to be able to track the infections worldwide. His action did much more than provide analytics. In a second, the spread of WannaCry ground to a halt. Newly infected instances would find the domain name and exit. He had found the kill switch. This didn't save already encrypted computers, but it bought enough time for people to prepare and protect themselves. But the creators of WannaCry won't give up so easily. 2 days later, on May 14th, a new variant appeared, with a different kill switch. French hacker Matt Swish would activate the new kill switch on the same day. A third version again appeared on May 15th, but Checkpoint threat intelligence analysts quickly registered it. Sometime later, a new version without a kill switch appeared, but it was too late. Systems were patched. They lost the element of surprise. So the attackers pivoted. Thousands of infected machines were dependent on that first registered domain, and if they could take it down, they could make a lot of money. So they launched their Hail Mary. On May 19th, a botnet started a distributed denial of service attack. Trying to take down the domain name, Marcus Hutchins reacted and switched to a cached version of the site, capable of dealing with higher traffic loads. At the same time, researchers figured out ways to extract the cryptographic keys from memory and decrypt files. Infections slowed to a trickle. WannaCry was defeated. However, that didn't fix what was already broken. It merely stopped it from happening anymore. Some companies ground to a halt. Famously, the National Health Service in the UK, which was still running Windows XP at the time, suffered greatly from the attack. 70,000 devices, including computers, MRI scanners, and blood refrigerators, shut down. Miraculously, no one died. All in all, the attack caused an estimated $4 billion in damages and made the attackers $130,000 in revenue. When the dust settled, analysts scoured the malware in order to find out who was behind the attack. The first clue came from the actual ransom note. Linguistic analysts found that the Chinese and English versions were written by proficient speakers, while the rest of the languages were most likely machine translated. The FBI's Cyber Behavioral Analysis Center found this tag in an RTF file, which meant that the computer that created the file had Korean alphabet fonts installed. They also discovered that whoever wrote the notes had their time zone set to UTC+9, the time zone used on the Korean peninsula. Symantec and Kaspersky Labs also noted that the code had similarities with code previously used by the Lazarus Group, a hacker group from North Korea. Later in December, the United States government formally asserted that it believed North Korea was behind the attack. The UK also supported their claim. Homeland Security Advisor at the time, Thomas Bossert, even said that intelligence indicates that Kim Jong-un himself may have given the order for the attack. North Korea, of course, denied any involvement. But it doesn't matter now. The damage was done. North Korea showed the world that with a little more competence, ransomware could be really profitable. Given that you don't include a simple kill switch that shuts down your entire operation immediately. Either way, Pandora's box was opened. A month later in June, the Petya malware ravaged through Ukraine, shutting down a third of the country's economy for 3 days, and causing an estimated $10 billion in damages worldwide. According to Ukrainian authorities and the CIA, Russia was behind the attack. The year 2017 saw an unprecedented surge in ransomware attacks, no doubt because of the impact WannaCry and Petya left. The following years would only see the amount of attacks and losses increase. However, some things would change. 3 main evolutions would happen for the world of ransomware to get where we are today. Evolution number 1. From state-sponsored to state-protected. While the notable attacks discussed earlier were attributed to state-sponsored threat actors, it seems like later attacks were mainly operated by groups that were at best affiliated with nation-states. For example, there is evidence that groups like Vice Society, Wizard Spider, and R-Evil are operating out of Russia. However, it doesn't seem like Russian authorities did anything to directly support them. Over time, a sort of symbiotic relationship developed between Russia and ransomware groups. Authorities would turn a blind eye to the existence of these groups, and the ransomware gangs would abstain from hurting Russian interests and allies, or even launch attacks specifically on enemies of the state. Russia would be able to deny any involvement in the attacks, and the ransomware groups would make a lot of money without worrying about prosecution. Evolution number 2. Careful targeting. Another development in ransomware following the 2017 attacks was the targeting. Unfortunately for these hacker groups, 0 days don't grow on trees, and exploits of the magnitude of Eternal Blue require a lot of initial investment and years of research. Not great if you're looking for a quick buck. So, attacks became more targeted. Rather than trying to infect as many machines as possible as quickly as possible, later attacks focused on specific companies or institutions, finding a way in, studying the company from the inside, deciding the ransom amount, which is tailored to the company's finances, and only later would they launch their attack. Evolution number 3. Business model. Taking inspiration from Silicon Valley executives, the next evolution would come in the form of a business model change, ransomware as a service. No longer are hacker groups going to try to break into companies themselves. That's ancient thinking. No, they simply provide the software for a fee, and the rest is on the client. Who are the clients? Well, anyone with access to a company's infrastructure. The client buys the malware and ensures access to the company, and depending on the group, the client may have to pay a fee for the service, or they may split the profits from the attack with the hackers. Welcome to the future. Thanks to these 3 steps, nowadays ransomware gangs are almost beyond counting. Attacks happen every other week, and the profits? Massive. $1.1 billion in 2023, and only rising from there. Since 2017, ransomware attacks have become a great concern for companies and individuals alike, and various hacker groups rose to exploit this profitable niche. The Eternal Blue debacle serves as a case study for why hoarding 0 days is a bad idea, even if you think it's in your country's best interest. Despite the NSA reporting the issue once the breach was discovered, it was too late, and a year earlier, Buckeye had managed to steal the exploit and go undetected. Whatever cyber weapons you have, it's safe to assume your adversaries have similar capabilities. Even still, a gray market of 0-day brokers still exists and thrives today. It seems that even lessons taught the hard way aren't taken to heart. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe.